Hey there. Firstly, I want to apologise. This is a very rushed job, as you might be able to tell. But it's a super fucking hectic time of year for me, and super hectic time of year without the Effigy, and the Effigy is a massive time sink on top of that. So yeah, it's also kind of hard for me to do this because I really don't want to give too much away. I really want it to be a surprise. I don't want you to have, teaser pictures and stuff that because things always look smaller in person. Yeah, but conversely, it's also really important because it's a fucking expensive undertaking. Effigy build is brutal. There's a lot of money involved, and particularly because we're moving from the South Island, we've got largely prefabricated structure that's coming from the South Island. Even with like backloads, like the shipping is pretty miserable. But I'd say the main thing that's actually adding a lot of costs is we're doing a lot of things very differently. Because of the way it's a very temporary structure, we don't have cranes, we don't have things like that. You end up doing a lot of rather sketchy working at heights. So there'll be, overusing machinery. I've seen people using, and I myself have used things like a knuckle boom and then set it up above the work and then use that as a point to use as a crane to lift things up onto the structure. You end up with a lot of sketchy lifts, a lot of climbing without a rope to get up to the structure, and yeah, a lot of working in kind of pretty dangerous ways. And on a lot of levels, I love it. I love working at heights. There's a few things I enjoy more than being able to look 10 meters down. But when you're building a project, it's important to kind of take a lot of safety into consideration. So what we're doing this year is we are building a large pole. Because of the time constraints with ignition, we're just gonna use a HIAB to lift the pole up. But then we start building from the top down, rather than the bottom up. So we build the very top of the Effigy, we connect our winches to it, and the winches go to the top of our lifting pole, and then we lift it up a couple of meters, start building the next layer. This approach is used in other contexts. The part of where I got the idea from is in Mexico. They build these giant, they call them castles, but essentially they're pretty much effigies. They're huge towers covered in fireworks that can be up to 30 meters high, so like vastly bigger than our Effigy, which is normally, I think there's a cap of 11 meters. But working in this method, they can build all of their structure on the ground and just lift it up 2 meters at a time. So, sometimes you might want a scaffold if you want to do some fusing, or a step ladder, but if you fell, you could fall a meter. You're not falling 11 meters, you're not falling 30 meters. So vastly safer. That said, they do lots of sketchy things. Like I watched a video online of one of the people climbing the tower, pulling out his cigar and using it to light a fuse that got broken to light the fireworks, and then he climbs down with all this showers of sparks pouring all over him. But the method is solid, and provided you don't climb it while it's burning, it's quite safe. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. We want to build from the top down rather than the bottom up. We want to kind of establish a method for this that we can use on future effigies, because this has been a problem for as long as I can remember. Like, it was a problem when I built the first effigy that I've built, and it's still the same sort of problem. But because of that, we get to do all of our work within a couple of meters of the ground. It's much safer. It's also a lot faster, because if you're only working at height, you're waiting for a knuckle boom to get in position, you're waiting for, the ladder to be free, you're waiting for the safety gear to be free, you're waiting for there to be no one on top of you. If you want to do work on the ground, you can't really work under someone because they could drop a fucking hammer on you, and even with a hard hat, that's a real bad time. So I think it's a vastly superior method, and it's a very flexible method. It's pretty much any shape of effigy you could build using this methodology. It's adding a lot of costs. The winch alone was $1,700, plus there's a whole lot of other associated costs. I spent nearly $300 on a Dyneema cord. ultra high molecular weight polyethylene rope, which is effectively like a steel cable, but much more pliable and stuff. So yeah, so we're adding a lot of these costs in, but these costs will be able to be available to other burners in the future for other Effigy projects. And it will, hopefully this methodology will establish a much safer way of building effigies in the future. And God, I hope I can draw the line and not build a second one, but I've already got a design for another one. The other thing that we're doing very differently is we're designing collapse from the start. Rather than building a structure, trying to make building codes and things like this, we're designing a structure that has programmed failure modes in it, so that when it burns, it collapses. And now this takes away an incredibly dangerous stage. So typically effigies are hobbled, effigies and temples are hobbled. Someone goes in, usually me, goes in with a chainsaw and cuts holes in things and hopes I'm cutting enough that it will fall down quickly and we don't need Digger Daddy to come and rescue us again. Praise them. But that it takes enough way that it falls down, but not enough that it falls down on me or on the people who are stacking the firewood into it. That it'll burn a satisfactory length of time and then collapse really nicely on cue. I hate that I'm telling you this, because by telling you this, if it doesn't work, I'll look like a total ass. But it's something we're doing very differently, and something that I think is really important, and something that I feel like needs to be more in the public sphere for understanding. If there's, I don't know, quite possibly there's people in your room tonight that are thinking of doing an effigy, and if you are, hit me up and I'll love to talk to you, probably bore you to tears with different ways that you can program in failure into a structure for burning. Yeah, so also don't give me a hard time if it doesn't fall down on cue. Like, it's a bonfire, I can't test it. It's always going to be guesswork, but hopefully the goddess willing. So because of our costs from being a South Island, doing programmed collapse, and investing a lot of money in this new method for how to build from the top down, there's a lot of things that we're kind of pulling back on that could be really fun. I don't want to name anything because I don't want to give any surprises away, but just think of spice, like we could be hitting this with a spice weasel, like bam bam, but we're having to trim a lot of those costs out because of important factors. Recognizing a crew's hard work is important. So although I barely drink, I'd love to have something to treat the crew with, and swag as well. Like, it's really important to me that the crew get a little memento, because honestly they work bloody hard. They work so fucking hard. They pull some crazy hours, and for me it's really important that they have a t-shirt, some stickers, something like that they can look on in the future and be like, yeah, that was the time I did that stupid fucking project, never doing that again. But maybe it was type 2 fun. Hope you have an awesome evening with your fundraiser. Hope you fund lots of art, because honestly it's important. This stuff doesn't make itself, and it's really important to me that artists aren't crippled with the costs of expressing things like this. But hope to see a lot of you on the paddock, and thanks very much for your funding. It's going to be very well appreciated.